Hey there, this is Neil McCuaig, and this is my vlog for my 2026 Design Week at Mohawk College's Game Design 374 program. Design Week is based off of game jams and happens midway through every semester. Students from every semester of the program are divided up into teams, and the third year students like me act as mentors for second and first year students. The teams consisted of 3 members from year 3 and about 5 students from semesters 1 and 2. The teams have from Monday until Friday to make a game based off of a certain theme, which is functionally 3 days, since Monday is typically planning out what to develop, and Friday the game is presented early in the morning. The theme of the week was a dual monitor multiplayer game this time around, and I got to be a mentor this year. As a mentor, I was mostly supposed to provide advice, and, if asked by the team, do tasks that were beyond the skill level of the semester 1 and 2 students, such as higher-end programming tasks. During the project, I and the other semester 3 mentors were mostly just utilized for advice, since the semester 1 and 2 students mostly wanted to complete the project under their own power, and had a good spread of roles including competent programmers. I also took notes for the group if they ever required a question answered, but the team was well coordinated enough that they rarely needed to ask me for clarification. Starting on Monday was focused on coming up with concepts for the game. Several were discussed, such as a 5v1 with one player as a boss monster, a dodgeball game, and a digging game with players controlling the joints on a backhoe. But what was settled on was an idea for a 2.5D multiplayer game built in Unity with up to 6 players split into 2 teams, called Puzzle Planet. It was inspired by the game Pico Park. The players took the role of astronauts trying to reach an artifact at the heart of an alien temple, and they would pass items back and forth through pipe systems in order to complete puzzles to progress. The team set up a Trello board to coordinate tasks, though that ran into an issue due to Trello having a limited number of team members that could be invited to one board without paying, which was later settled by having one of the other mentors, TJ, coordinate the board for them. A Discord chat was also set up for the purposes of communication. Mechanics were then discussed, with a gravity-changing mechanic being a major focus the team focused on, which is where the idea of the players being astronauts developed from. Other than the gravity and item pipe mechanics, some other mechanics that were discussed for puzzles were switches, pressure plates, generic objects to use with pressure plates, rolling and falling boulders, altars or statues that would have a similar function to the pressure plates, but would require specific objects to be placed in them, large aliens that you have to give food to move them out of the way, sand traps, lava traps, pits, TNT for blasting open walls, geysers that would launch the player, lasers, and minecarts with rail systems. The artists then promptly got to work, developing the player characters, the UI, and the 3D assets for the level, and the team broke off for the day. When we reconnoitered on Tuesday, the focus of the day was on the design of the levels and the puzzles, and on what puzzles would be implemented. The GitHub for the game was also distributed via Discord. The team decided that they wanted the level to be a long tunnel, with a wall going down the center leading towards a central temple area where the players would win the level by grabbing the artifact. The players would be on opposite sides of the wall, on opposite ends of the level. I was asked to set the camera system for this up, and did it like you can see on screen, with the addition of 2 outer walls so that when the player entered the center area, a background would be visible. However, this was not used in the end due to time constraints preventing the 2.5D aspect of the design from coming to fruition. Additionally, some changes to the gameplay were made. First, the player count would be reduced from 6 to 4, after some concerns about puzzle design, implementation complexity, and potential lag were raised. As well, an idea was adopted to change the design from one long hallway to having a hub world, with 3 teleporters to an easy, medium, and hard puzzle area. Lastly, how damage and potentially death would be implemented was discussed. Since having players permanently knocked out of the game via dying would be difficult to balance, it was instead decided that death would simply teleport players to the beginning of the puzzle. Coding and art development proceeded through the evening, with some key mechanics like picking up items and the pipe system being implemented, along with a few 3D environmental assets. Lastly, it was decided that the control of gravity would be tied to a grav ball, an item that the players would have to find and hold, and would only change the gravity of the player holding it, and a gravity switch, which would change everyone's gravity. Likewise, the team settled on the levels having a timer, represented by an oxygen meter, to make sure that play sessions were within the 10-minute max time limit that players were to have. Wednesday saw the team mostly focus on development on the UI and actual mechanics, and does not have much of note compared to the previous 2 days. Some art assets were designed. The UI went through a few iterations before settling on this design. Respawn points were added, and some of the basic puzzles, such as pressure plates, doors with keys, and moving platforms, were added. Thursday, likewise, had very little to mention as the team focused on getting their ideas implemented in Unity. A new level that worked better with the boilerplate code that was provided at the start of the project was created, a gravity switch was implemented, the hub world design was scrapped at this time, and the multi-screen camera system was made to work. UI that would be implemented was also implemented. Friday was the day that the team's work was to be presented. However, several last-minute changes were made at this point, including the addition of a couple of puzzles. The version that was put up did have a few missing parts due to time constraints, including the sound and animation controllers being broken, and the UI not appearing properly. After the team presented what they had gotten done, several other art assets were created, but they were not implemented into the build. In the end, Puzzle Planet won an honorable mention for artistic achievement, second place for best use of constraints, and an honorable mention for best overall design. While the game was not fully implemented by time of the playtest to the team's desired target, it was functional by the deadline, which in my experience can be surprisingly hard as a target to hit, given the team functionally only had about 3 full days for development to build their game, and that some members of the team may be very inexperienced with Unity as first-year students. I am unfortunately unable to show you gameplay since I only have one monitor and one computer to work with, and it is a multiplayer, multi-screen game. That is all for this vlog. See ya.